Okay, so this is a last-minute addition to the docket that Alex has added, and he's mad. He's mad about comments on the internet. There are people out there that need to be silenced, Alex.
Yeah.
They need to be unmasked, eliminated, embarrassed. They need to be put in their place. They must be silenced, right?
Yes. Drop the hammer, Alex. Bring it.
Well, the whole comment, the reason why I wanted to add this in is because I launched the Doom video, and I saw comments under John's Doom video as well as Oliver's Doom video. People are kind of, what is it? They're not seeing the big picture, and they're like focusing on tiny things. So like for Oliver's video, Oliver focused in on the lower PS5 performance and PS5 Pro performance. People saw that as a very negative thing, but they ignored the fact that he said like a vast majority of the game is 60 FPS. And then, with John's video, John's talking about the fact that the game uses ray trace lighting, and everyone's like, oh my God, it's using ray trace lighting. Then they come to my video, and I point out, the fact that a 4060 is a low-end GPU. Maybe we could talk about that too. Things like that. But the large comment that I saw under every single video was the phrase, this game uses forced RT. Like at gunpoint, it's holding you down. It's forcing that RT upon you. And oh my goodness. I just want to say that I find this really regressive attitude towards select games. And believe me, the vast majority of the market does not actually require an RT capable card. The select games that do, as part of their minimum requirements, require DirectX ray tracing or Vulkan ray tracing, that they're kind of like shunned and punished on like a large public scale for some reason. I find it a little bit silly. Just like from the historicals perspective, when games in the past released and they required a certain level of GPU or even CPU to run, I don't think people said this game uses forced SSE instructions. I don't think they said that. I think they said
pixel shaders.
Yeah, I think this is a new phraseology that's popped up. I would love to know where and why. Yeah, and as a result, I've never looked at it that way. As someone who had I had an X800 XT back in the day, and it was made obsolete by DirectX 9.0C just about 2 to 3 years later. Pretty much couldn't play any AAA games after that point in time. And, seeing people now saying the phrase forced regarding a technology that has existed in GPUs since 2018, I feel like people are just, the phraseology is forced and not actually the technology itself, which currently you don't actually require ray tracing in many games. In fact, the vast majority, I think there's only been about 5, 6, maybe 7 if you start including those RTX titles that are called Portal RTX and whatnot. There aren't actually many titles that require a DXR capable GPU. Even some of the ones that you'd think they might, like that have RTGI as the basis, all your Unreal Engine 5s, your Snowdrop titles, they actually, or even Assassin's Creed, they have a software fallback or a really rudimentary raster fallback. So I would just like to take the time to comment that I don't think forced RT is a thing. And I would really prefer you stop writing that underneath my videos.
Well, Alex, it kind of is forced RT in that you have to have a GPU that supports hardware accelerated ray tracing, but at the same time, it's the kind of sort of what can you say? I'm just looking at the Steam hardware survey, and there's like 1 or 2 GPUs, 3 maybe, I guess 4 if you, depending on what Iris Xe graphics actually are. But in the Steam hardware survey, the vast majority of the graphics cards at the top of the list, and even going down, do support hardware accelerated ray tracing. And the point is, I think that from your video, and I actually think it was a really interesting concept you did with the video. I mean, when you're reviewing a PC game, there's the attraction to just stick in your 5090 and show it looking awesome. You used a 4060 and showed it looking awesome on a resolution that is arguably sort of beyond what a 4060 was designed for, 1440p.
Right.
And yet there it is. And the whole 8GB VRAM issue that we had with Indiana Jones doesn't seem to be an issue with Doom: The Dark Ages. So it's a celebration, effectively, of a game that is actually super optimal. People are online, tech journalists are lauding probably the best frame times we've seen in a game for God knows how long.
Yeah.
There's much to commend here. And, the point that you have to use ray tracing. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's a bad thing as such when I'm looking at the sell-through of 20, 30, 40, 60 graphics cards. They're all compliant with DirectX 12 Ultimate, which is what the game needs. The ray tracing implementation doesn't stop the game running extremely well. And I think it's a triumph, really, in many, many ways for a game like this. So what more can we say about this Forced RT? The thing which I find quite interesting is that John actually demonstrated in his video that Forced RT, quote unquote, is actually a massive boon for a game developer because it solves so many problems in the actual creation phase of the game as well. So, what can you say? There's got to be a point where actually it's okay to use cutting edge features, but the point is they're not really cutting edge anymore.
No,
not at all.
So it is a bit baffling. I just think there is still this sort of pushback towards ray tracing, but you look at the amount of cards that can support it, and it shouldn't be a problem. I guess maybe the 6GB 2060. We didn't test that. Possibly questionable.
It does run the game I've read online, by the way.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. But, come on. Ray tracing now, it is the year of our Lord, 2025. And as you say, Alex, the cards debuted in 2018. I mean, at some point we've got to let the past, we've got to bygones be bygones, so to speak. Mm-hmm. John, thoughts?
I've thought about this a lot, and I wonder if this is sort of a generational age gap thing at some point, because there was a period of time where I would argue PC graphics sort of stagnated, right, Alex?
So, yeah, I'd agree.
Mm-hmm. For a while, it was just like, okay, it's a console game with slightly higher settings, and that's what PC gaming was for like a decade. And every new generation of cards was the same but faster, but it wasn't like that in the past. As you mentioned, games like Half-Life 2, Doom 3, Far Cry come along, Fear comes along, Crysis, of course, Stalker. These games were all lauded back in the day, beloved by PC audiences everywhere, right? But they were demanding. Go back in the 90s, it's the same. What about when 3D cards first showed up? Oh, I can't play this game now because it requires a 3D accelerator. Yeah. Or, in all of these cases, these games were built very specifically with that hardware in mind. And I'm sure there was some complaints, but it never really reached that point where people were like, oh, it has forced whatever technical feature it's using. When Half-Life 2 was shown off the first time, everybody was like so bowled over by the technical demonstration that it was just like, oh yes, we want this. We've never seen stuff like this before. And it was amazing. And people largely accepted that, okay, to run this game, you need X amount of hardware. That's like the minimum requirement. And about, when would you say, Alex? Maybe 2008, 2009, 2010, somewhere?
That seems about right. Somewhere around then.
Yeah, PC graphics just kind of got boring in that regard, and it just kind of all became the same. I mean, there was a little bit of the DX10 stuff with, Metro and cryostasis and all that. But then it just kind of settled into this like routine. And then if you grew up during that era, if that's when you were buying your PC hardware, then I understand that the switch to this might feel a little bit unfair. I don't even want to say unfair. I don't know. I can see why it might resonate a different way with those users. So I can kind of see where they're coming from. But at the same time, like you said, we've had RT cards since 2018. It's like 7 years. I mean, most people playing games of this caliber are going to have a ray tracing capable card. And as you demonstrated in your video, it runs extremely well. It's a very fast game. You can get insane performance out of it. And the people that also complain about, oh, but then you have to use AI like DLSS and FrameGen, and I'd say, no, you don't. You
Really
absolutely
don't.
do not. You can play native res. You can play without any frame upscaling. You're going to get super good frame times even on medium to lower end hardware, I think. It's incredibly impressive. But as I said so I mentioned in my video, but in the interview video that I'm working on right now, Billy actually goes very into detail about how they focus so much on, very specifically, frame time consistency. Like they wanted to make sure, like in terms of like actually looking at the hardware level, where bits are in memory, how the GPU is addressed, all these like super microscopic details in terms of how their code runs within the hardware. They were very, very, very much paying close attention to this. And I think that's kind of like the most important thing. So maybe the frame rates aren't as high as Doom Eternal, obviously, because it's a more advanced game, but they're gosh darn consistent. Plus, it also helps with development, as you mentioned there, Rich, right? Having worked on some games now myself in terms of on a design role, I see the value big time in being able to actually see what you're doing. And it's not actually new necessarily. Like I said, in that Unreal does it. Other engines do this now, but id's engine didn't. But this really unleashes artists now to essentially just produce stuff and be able to micro adjust it exactly to suit their taste, right? Because if you have to bake everything out every time, it actually sort of makes the artist less likely to want to perfect it all the way, right? Because it's a big hassle to do that. So as he basically insinuated, like Doom, the Dark Ages, the scale at which they designed the maps, they couldn't have made this in this time frame, even though it's still relatively long, but they couldn't. This was during COVID as well. They couldn't have made it in this time frame without ray tracing. So ray tracing played a gigantic role in making this game come out the way it did.
Yeah, I'd agree 100%. One other, that's exactly it. And one other thing that I think a lot of people took, they had problems with in my coverage was my reference to the fact that the RTX 4060 Rich is a low end card. What do you think about that statement? I know we're switching gears a little bit there, but this is a little bit of post-mortem Doom coverage at the moment. But what do you think about that RTX 4060 is a low-end card statement from me? I would love to hear your 2 cents.
It is a low-end card because, what can I say? You look at the RTX 40 series stack on the desktop side, and you can't get a lower specification desktop GPU in the RTX 40 series line. So therefore, it is a low-spec card. It's nowhere near as powerful. It's been cut down in so many ways compared to basically anything 70 class upwards. In all manner of ways that actually annoy you, Alex.
Yeah, that's
which
least favorite GPU I've ever owned.
Me.
Yeah,
continually abuses me.
I complain to Rich every week or so that I have to use the 4060 because I hate how many weak points it has, because it means I have to test more. Usually with a GPU that has less weak points, I can just say, oh, the problem is this setting in the game and not the GPU itself. And that is a whole different testing paradigm.
There's a lot of issues there. There's a lot of issues there. There's the fact that it's got only 8 gigs of memory, which causes problems, and it's not always immediately apparent that it is a VRAM related problem. There's the fact that the bandwidth for the memory is very low, and there's also the fact that the PCIe interface has been cut back to half of what it should be. And that means there's going to be potential issues for people who are using older motherboards as well, because it's a PCIe 4 card, I believe. And if you put it in a PCIe 3 motherboard, there could be issues, bandwidth issues. Oh, yeah. So there's like a cascade of problems which are unfortunate for the 4060 because it's most likely to be paired with an older system simply due to the fact that it's an entry level, dare I say it, low end GPU, Alex.
Oh boy.
So in that respect, it is low end. Yes, there are less capable cards, but based on the settings that you are using, let's say 3060 isn't as fast overall as the 4060. It doesn't have the VRAM issues or the PCIe problems. It's got the full size bus there. 3060 is generally slower than the 4060 though. So, but at the same time, you were running at 1440p on DLSS quality mode. So, the concept that what you're saying there won't translate to a 3060 is kind of nonsense, because, you can just, as you said in the video, lower the DLSS quality level, or indeed go to 1080p, which is probably more likely the screen that something like a 3060 or a lower end card is going to be paired with anyway.
Right.
So I do think that it's obviously an entry level GPU, because, the only thing less capable in the 40 series line is going to be laptop solutions. And the laptop 4060 is actually pretty close to the desktop 4060. That seems to be a running theme with the 60 series cards as they translate onto laptop, presumably because they've got low power budgets anyway on desktop. It's a good fit for laptop. And looking again at the Steam hardware survey, holy crap, 4.99% of people, the number one GPU on the Steam hardware survey is the 4060 laptop GPU. So combine that with the 4060, which has got 4.51%.
Oh my goodness.
That's basically 9.5% of the Steam hardware survey are using a 4060 either as a desktop card or a laptop card, which probably... I don't know. Are you crying inside based on that statistic?
I think people are just buying what's in their budget and or buying pre-builds.
Yes.
With the laptop, there is only a pre-build. So I think if there was actually a better choice in that market segment for the feature set, people would have bought something differently. I don't think this is the actual GPU people like. My humble.
Man, nearly every one of these darn cards is ray tracing capable, isn't it?
Yeah. It's amazing.
1650, which is at number 4, no. 1060, which is a bit further down the list, no. But, come on, I don't know, have you not upgraded your GPU in the last 7 years?
That's crazy.
That's the other thing. Surely most people who've bought a graphics card let's be generous, 5 years, they would have likely bought a DX12 Ultimate compatible card. And based on the Steam hardware survey, you bought an NVIDIA one.
I'm sorry to tell whoever's still holding on to those older cards, but that is the entirety of a console generation right there.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Between when it launched to now, that is a full console generation. That is the PS4 generation. I don't think it's unfair to ask you to upgrade to a next generation card to play certain types of games, because there's still plenty of games to play if you don't have that. But still, it's a full generation. That's amazing. We never got that back in the day.
No,
I'd be far more concerned about this if the game wasn't so performant.
Yeah, if it was like, Stalker 2 or I don't know, Monster Hunter or Dragon's Dogma, I'd be like, yeah, this game kind of runs like crap anyway. I don't feel like defending it. But in this case, it's like, as I said in my video, one of the most fluid frame time games I've ever seen for a long time, especially given the fact that the world's one thing John and Oliver couldn't do, because they don't want to spoil the entire game, is they don't show you how insane the game gets with enemy count necessarily. They don't show you how insane the world size is and the speed you move through it at times. Other games would creak and tumble, especially with ray tracing. And it's not like they're removing tons of stuff from the ray tracing structure in the game. If you look at the ray trace reflections, the only thing that is missing are leaves on trees. That's really about it. Everything else is in there, including all the fully animated player models. Character model.
Sorry. They let you turn up the speed to 150% as well. So you can there's later levels blasting through at that size with that number of enemies at 150% speed, and the game barely breaks a sweat.
Yeah, it's
so
crazy.
Fast.
And just one last little bit is that the concept that a GTX 1060 or even a GTX 1080 Ti is, I just want to focus on that 1060. Because if you go back in time to a similar time frame, that'd be trying to run GTX 660, which wasn't a very good GPU back in the day, Yeah. And 2018 time period, and you're trying to run, I don't know, my goodness, Battlefield 5 on it. That would be an awful experience.
If I may, Alex, if we use that same time frame, it would be akin to trying to play Doom 3 or Half-Life 2 on a rendition Verite or a 3DFX Voodoo 1.
It is the same. You're right. It's super. That's the time period. And that is a no-go. It shouldn't run. We shouldn't expect that.
Well, they got Doom 2 or Doom 3 working on a Voodoo 2, but it sure don't look like Doom 3.
Give that a Google, everyone.
Okay, my final thought on this is pretty straightforward. 2 years from now, spoilers, likely 2 years, I should say, Grand Theft Auto 6 will be coming to PC, and hate to say it's going to have 4-star T, guys.
You know, 4-star.
2K is going to knock on your door and at gunpoint make you turn on that RT, and they're not going to say no. They're not going to let you say no. Let me say that much.